Bro, it's been too long since I've seen a Mad Season video. It's been like at least a week or two. That intro, man. That's nice. That's real nice. Oh, that's good.
Hey guys, what's up? Mad Season here.
Hey,
back
Mad
with
Season.
another video for you. Get ready to huff that copium. It's another Classic Plus video.
I love
so, recent
copium.
20th anniversary that World of Warcraft had. Some people were speculating that it would be that fabled day. The announcement of what many have been requesting for years and years and years. Classic Plus. Unfortunately for them, they forgot that they were Blizzard fans. So I'm here to give you the next best thing. Some random person's idea on what it could be.
To be fair, is Blizzard in the position to release Classic Plus? No. We have SOD already still going. It wouldn't make any sense to be like, Season of Discovery's halfway through, let's launch Classic Plus. Like, it just doesn't make any sense. Also, we have Kata that's turning to Mob. Like, Classic Plus would be awesome. Trust, like, yeah, I'm all for it. I'm all for it. But it doesn't make any sense right now. It would be, you wait till SOD is over, you wait till like classic Kata turns to Mop, and then you wait for like Mop to kind of die down / you figure out what you're gonna do there. You kind of end SOD, end Mop, and then be like, all right, Classic Plus kind of a deal. I think launching it now, I don't think anyone was really expecting it now, because it's like you can't. There's too many things going on.
So what is Classic Plus? Well, it's different depending on who you ask. There's a too many cooks in the kitchen situation going on, and everyone will give you a different answer, so I'll give you one more. But it's vanilla World of Warcraft, but more in the spirit of vanilla. No, not that. But we will talk about Discovery in this video. So this of course leads into the next question. What is the spirit of vanilla? Well, everybody has their different definition, but to me it lies on three main pillars: simplicity, world, and charm. So let's first cover these in more detail, and bearing them in mind, we'll talk about how to achieve and retain them.
I really like these 3 points. I think, to be honest, these 3 points, even for retail, are important. I think retail has lost its simplicity. It's lost its simplicity. There's too many currencies. There's too much stuff going on where you log in as a new player and you're like, I don't know. I think retail could benefit from more simplicity. 2, world. I think retail has lost a lot of its world. Not really because it's retail's fault, but it's just because it's so big. There's so many continents. There's so many layers, realms. Like if you go somewhere, chances are you don't see anyone else. Like the world has kind of lost the sense of the world because of it's just so massive. And that's a hard problem to solve really, because, well, as you release a new expansion, you release new zones, and then 2 years later release another new expansion with new zones, and 20 years later now you have a bunch of dead zones because the world is too big. So it's a really tough thing to solve, but it's still a problem. And then 3, charm. Retail, you can argue, probably still has some charm left, but I think without 1 and 2 it gets tough, right? So yeah, I love this little list here.
In the modern era, the first is simplicity. It's pretty simple. When World of Warcraft first released, it redefined the genre and brought it into the mainstream with several key revolutions. Perhaps one of the most important being its simplicity and its accessibility compared to most other MMOs at the time. Before its premiere, the genre could only be described as complicated, grindy, and intimidating. The player would be putting in unrefundable stat points on character creation before they even ever set foot in the game. Death came with harsh penalties such as experience and item loss, and gameplay systems required hours of reading the in-game manual to get a basic understanding.
Press 1 in the chat if you ever have read an in-game manual in your life. Bro, any game I've played with a manual, I just threw it aside, instant logged in. I've never read one. Wait, there's actually that many people? You guys read the manuals? I was wondering if there was any of those people. Holy crap. Maybe that's why I'm a noob. I don't know. Holy moly. I've never read a manual before. Holy crap.
And while this itself isn't necessarily bad game design, as shown, it was niche at the time. But then came the game that changed it all and brought the persistent online world to anyone who had a decent enough computer. It was forgiving, friendly, and quite easy to pick up. It had depth and a high skill ceiling for those who sought to perfect their gameplay, but it also had an equally low floor to where anyone could just pick it up. You level to 60 in a linear and mostly curated campaign of quests, another groundbreaking feature at the time. And then you either PvP, dungeon, raid, or all of the above. And that's really it. And funny enough, this simplicity has only become more and more attractive as time has gone on. Almost as attractive as becoming a professional back-end web developer with a premier learning platform, boot.dev. Ever thought about learning code but felt overwhelmed by where to start? Let me introduce you to boot.dev, the smartest way to learn back-end web development.
I've seen a couple boot.dev ads on YouTube. I've never been sponsored by them, but I have to say they have a pretty cool service, and since I'm watching Mad Season's video, we'll let it play through. Love you, Mad Season. All right.
From start to finish in Python and Go. No pressure, it's just your future career hanging in the balance here. Boot.dev keeps you engaged and motivated by turning coding into a gamified experience. You'll earn XP, levels, and achievements while completing real projects, making it feel more like a game than this microtransaction simulator has for the past 10 years. And if you ever get stuck, you can enlist the help of Boots, the AI-powered wizard, or an active Discord community to guide you. It ensures that you learn by actually writing a lot of code and get you a lot of real hands-on practice to get you job ready. Membership comes with a 30-day no questions asked refund policy, so if you hate it, you can bail faster than Blizzard did with their promise to not bring level boosts or WoW tokens to Classic.
Told you so, by the way.
So whether you're just starting your career or upskilling for remote opportunities, or just looking for a productive way to procrastinate, boot.dev has you covered. Head on over and use my code MADSEASONSHOW to get 25% off your first payment, either monthly or annually, and start your coding journey today. Anyways, as the game changed and evolved, more and more features would be added. Arena, achievements, multiple difficulties for dungeons, raids, borrowed power systems, dailies, weeklies, collections of all sorts, and so much more. An insane breadth of content has been injected into almost every orifice. In just one patch or expansion, none of these features really seem to be game-changing, but after 20 years, it adds up, and it's clear that World of Warcraft today is far different, and like myself, much more bloated, and unlike myself, complex. 20 years of zones, level increases, dungeons, battlegrounds, raids.
It's a really tough situation to be in. My initial knee-jerk response is, you take the Bruce Lee philosophy of like you add value by subtracting, right? What can we remove to add value? What can we simplify here, right? What can we reduce? What can we get rid of to give our users a better product, right? That's my mindset. That's how I think. It's like, okay, so you look at retail, what can we get rid of? But then the hard thing is, well, if you get rid of the new zones, it's like, why would you add them in the first place? And if you put in a new system and someone loves it, then you're removing someone's favorite feature. And over the years, like 20 years, they've added so much bloat to retail. It's like, what do you do? And I'm going to be honest, guys, I don't have the answer. Like, I don't have the answer. I would love to say I would simplify things if I was in charge, but like, it's like, okay, so you're in charge. What do you do day one? What do you get rid of? It gets really, really, really tricky. You hard reset and play WoW 2. Well, yeah, but then you get that's not actually solving anything. With WoW 2, you're going to be in the same position. In theory, you create WoW 2, it's simple again, but then 2 years later you do a new expansion and then you end up in the same position. You're not solving the problem, you're kicking the can down the road, right? So what do you do to solve the problem? WoW 2 is not a solution at all. I don't know. I really don't know. It's tough. It's tough. You release a new expansion with no new features. That's a solution, but then no one buys it because there's nothing new. You would start deleting and blowing up old continents. That kind of works, but then you're like removing the lore of the world and maybe someone's favorite zone and quests, and I don't know if that feels good either. I don't know.
Collections, achievements, class changes, classes added, balance reworks. It's become intimidating just to pick up and play. You feel behind because the game has had so much history and changes at this point, and while many of the players bring decades of knowledge along with them, a new player brings none. Even before it's installed, they feel overwhelmed and outmatched, that they either can't stand up to others directly, or maybe they feel like a burden, something that's reinforced by the toxic-ass community who plays this game. It's the same philosophy as fresh MMO launches. Aside from their actual design, one of the main attractions is just the fact that they're new. Gone is the bloat and the feeling of starting behind or missing out. Everyone is starting off from square one in terms of character progression, and in the case of Classic, while it isn't the first rodeo for many, due to the low floor and simplicity to just jump in, it's not as intimidating. Oh no! How will I ever understand the intricacies of the mage rotation? How am I ever going to learn the complex raid mechanics of this boss? There's complexity and a high skill ceiling to be found for sure, but at its base, it's simple. The entirety of the content is encompassed into 2 continents, not 50. There are no collections, no achievements, no daily nor weekly timers that keep you on a treadmill against your will. Aside from raiding, I guess. There are just 9 classes, and these classes, while again they can have a very high ceiling, at their core they're all pretty simple and easy to understand and play. One of the reasons why I say that vanilla World of Warcraft is appealing to people isn't necessarily for what it has, it's what it doesn't have, and in a way, it attracts players the same way that it did in 2004. So, simplicity, pillar number 1. Next up, we have the world. I've said this before and I'll say it again. The MMO was social media before people knew what social media was. Although multiplayer games, of course, existed, the thought of being a part of this persistent online world that you could change and live in was intriguing, to say the least. It transcended a video game. It was this world where you could share with others, meet friends, make enemies, an online microcosm to explore, and the actual world of Azeroth is one of Vanilla's most defining characteristics. In modern MMOs, it varies, but generally, when a new expansion is released, it comes with a new zone to explore. New quests, new biomes, dungeons, raids. It's exciting to have new areas to uncover in a game that you may have been playing for a very long time. But prior to the release of the Burning Crusade, all content within the game was held within just 2 continents, the Eastern Kingdoms in Kalimdor, and Azeroth in this state has since become one of the most iconic game worlds to date. And it's for good reason. The biomes are completely unique. You could be in the lush Elwyn Forest in one moment, and then the open plains of Westfall the next, to the rolling hills of Red Ridge, the dark and spooky Duskwood, straight into the dense jungle of Stranglethorn, and all of it without a single loading screen.
Dude, all of those zones he just mentioned are my absolute favorite zones in Classic. You go from Elwyn to Westfall, Red Ridge, Duskwood, STV. That to me is peak Classic. That's why I do like Alliance more when I play Classic, because like that experience in that starting zone is just, to me, like unparalleled. It's just so good. And a lot of that's probably nostalgia speaking. I played as a 12-year-old doing that, but like, oh my gosh.
And no matter what you're doing, even if you're asleep, there's somebody clearing through the forests of Fairless, or they're grouping up for a Stratholme run, or maybe they're just starting out in Durotar. The world presence and immersion was, and still is, one of its most attractive features, and combined with the fact that there were no flying mounts, the world seemed massive and full of unknowns and possibilities, so it's no wonder why so many fell in love with it. It's become synonymous with vanilla, and the first thing that people think of when you say the word. A lot of it may come from nostalgia, and if you think that's a problem, I would never hire you on my development team, because the simple fact is that nostalgia draws people to games. That's why you see so many remakes these days, whether that's video games or
Fortnite.
Hollywood. There's appeal in rediscovering worlds that we fell in love with a long time ago, and it's a huge draw to Vanilla WoW, and it's not even a bad thing. I, for one, happen to enjoy the warm and fuzzy feeling of nostalgia. No one gets criticized for replaying Mario on the NES. No one gets gatekeeped for enjoying a recipe that their mom made when they were a kid. I don't see why nostalgia is seen as this taboo thing within the world of MMORPGs, other than tribalism and short-sightedness. But regardless of all of that, the old world is a huge part of Vanilla's identity, so anything related to Classic Plus would benefit greatly.
I was visiting my grandmother in the nursing home last weekend or 2 weekends ago, and I was looking around, and I was thinking, when we're all at the age to be in nursing homes, I am 100% going to want a gaming setup with some internet and play some classic WoW. Like 100%. That, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, if I don't have my computer, man, I don't know. Holy crap. You know, jeez, I've thought the same. You know, I've joked about the same when I was a kid. I joked about it at like 15, like, ha ha ha, I'm going to play WoW in the nursing home, ha ha ha. But I'm 31 now. When I was actually in the nursing home last weekend, I was like, yeah, no, I actually want my gaming setup in the nursing home. Like, that's probably what I'm going to be doing. I'm like, you could play bingo or watch TV or whatever. Like, no, I'm going to be gaming. I'm going to be parsing. I'm going to be climbing the ladders. I'm going to be going for my 100 parse this week. And if someone messes it up, I'm probably going to blame Peo. Like, it's going to be great. Like,
from remaining
I don't know, man.
Because it also happens to share something from pillar number 3.
It felt real.
And that's charm. Vanilla at times has been described as a game with a lot of charm, and I have only one word to describe it: vendor strike. Over time within the genre, both players and developers have got it into their heads that better balance equals better game design. I always like to use the chess analogy for this, a game that's existed since even before your mom was born. I don't even need to explain how legendary it is.
Yeah, it's really ironic because I want Vendor Strike on my Monk, because my Monk challenge, I can use pole arms, and Vendor Strike will probably be one of my best in slot items. So
it kind of speaks for itself. And despite how long ago it was released, it's been patched and rebalanced a total of 0 times. Each piece is completely unique. They hold their own strengths and weaknesses. The pawn can only move forward, much like how humanity trudges onward. An unbroken chain of pawns, driven not by purpose, but by the relentless ticking of time, marching endlessly towards a horizon that cares nothing for their steps.
Wow, Mad Season, a Werge, holy crap. Is it a WoW video? Oh my goodness. What I was gonna say was, the analogy I like to use, and I don't think I made this up, but if someone hired you, they paid you a lot of money, say $1 billion or something, to come out with Chess 2.0 that is a better game than Chess 1.0, and you had 2 or 3 years to develop it, aka Blizzard with WoW, could you do it? And the answer is probably not. But say you did pull it off. Let's just say you pulled it off. You get 2 or 3 years to come out with Chess 3.0 that has to be even better than Chess 2.0 by changing the rules, adding something to the board, adding new pieces, stuff like that. And then say you did pull it off again 2 times in a row, aka TBC and Wrath. Then you have to do it a third time, and then a 4th time, and then a 5th time. You see what I'm getting at? My point is, it's impossible. It's an impossible task, no matter how much you're paid. It's like, you can't just keep making the game better and better when it comes to something that's like so good already. You, like, at some point, like, so Counter-Strike, I think, is kind of a good example. It's a really good game. You don't have to keep adding and changing and whatever. You can refine, and that's fine. There's refinements over years, and that's fine. But Counter-Strike's a game that they've refined very little, and they've changed very little over the years, and people still seem to enjoy it. And chess is another great example. Well, chess has literally 0 patches, like Mad Season just said. So when you start thinking of stuff like that, and you look at Blizzard with WoW, it's like, sheesh. They have an impossible task in their hands, right? Or close to impossible.
The rook is also interesting, as it can move adjacently in 4 directions as far as they want. And the queen was made during the Paleolithic Me Too movement, because it's just OP, moving in any direction as much as it wants without regard to who they hurt, because that's just the way life works. And the knight is, forget about it. This motherfucker can jump over people I mean, what the
I
F?
love this whole chess
But
analogy.
Each piece, although different, have their own truly unique strengths and weaknesses, and while compared to each other, they're not balanced at all. When combined in a group, together, they have formed a game that's been played long before you were born, and long after you will die. So now, I'd like to introduce to you what chess looks like when an MMO developer balances it. The rook can now also move in any direction as far as they want, like the queen, because not enough people were playing them. The pawn can now move in any direction as far as they want, like the queen, because not enough people were playing them. The knight can now move in any direction as far as they want, like the queen, because not enough people were playing them.
It's a great analogy.
In fact, every piece now has the same strengths and weaknesses of the queen, and you can also buy them for $19.99 each in the cash shop.
Dude, it's a great analogy.
Isn't the video game awesome?
Yeah.
I call it Blizzard chess. Balance is boring, and especially in an MMO, where it's a persistent online world with different classes, specs, talent builds, and thousands of items.
Okay, I think jumping to the conclusion that balance is boring is like too much of a leap. I do agree with Mad Season's point, though, that different classes need to have different strengths and different weaknesses. It's okay that mages own warriors in a duel, and mages can own an AoE, but in a single target, warriors like are gonna just completely smoke mages in like Molten Core by like a factor of like 10 or whatever. And like then you look at like a paladin and it's like, well, paladin ret pallies suck, but they supply buffs to reduce threat, so the rest of the raid doesn't get one shot. It's like, as long as you are a piece of the puzzle, that's fine. But if a class just actually sucks, like nobody's playing the class, like it actually sucks, there's no utility, nothing added, then, there's an issue there. But the difference is this: you can't be good at everything. You can't be good at everything. You have to say, okay, this class is good at this, but it's going to suck at this. You're going to excel here, and you're going to do poorly here. But once you have the mindset of every class has to be good at everything, then it's just a homogenization problem. And then it's like, okay, well, that's an issue. So just to clarify a little bit, I don't think like it's just as simple as balance is boring, right?
To equip to support your play style. People are under the impression that weaknesses or bad items are synonymous with bad game design. It's not a flaw that warlocks have next to no mobility, or hunters have a dead zone,
right?
Or rogues are cooldown dependent in PvP.
Yes.
These are weaknesses that they need in order to balance out their many other strengths.
Yeah.
And to have good items, you also have to have bad items. And it's when developers saw otherwise is when they started to lose their identity.
Right.
In regards to classes in vanilla.
Oh, ads. Okay. Those were auto-played. Sorry, chat. I'll wait for ads. That's fine. Ads are done? Okay, great.
Is when they started to lose their identity. In regards to classes in vanilla, each class has a role and is useful to some degree. Are Fury Warriors OP in PvE? Yeah, but how are they in PvP? They're kind of dog shit.
Yep.
Does it suck that druids don't have a res? Yeah, but who do you want running your flag in Warsong Gulch?
Yep.
The very fact that vanilla has been running for 20 years, private server or otherwise, shows that this supposed terrible class balance isn't as big of an issue that people make it out to be.
You know what's funny is at a high level in rated battleground, or not rated, but battlegrounds in Classic, the ideal group composition, guess what, is one of each class. And maybe you have two of something because there's 10 spots. I don't know what you take two of. Someone in the chat probably knows. Right? Which is really interesting. At a high level, you take one of each class in a game that is 20 years old. It makes me wonder if the balance was done brilliantly or by accident. It almost feels like it's more of an accident. It literally feels like it's more of an accident. Oh yeah, you think you take two priests. I think that would probably make sense. But anyway, it almost feels like it was done by accident in a sense. I don't know, maybe it was either brilliant or an accident. But you look at this 20-year-old game, and the ideal team is 10 different classes in a battleground squad for tournament level play. And it's like, whoa. You look at retail, and most tournaments that have happened in the battleground scene in retail, you stack like Moonkins warlocks, shadow priests, right? Like every time it's just like you have these classes that are OP and you just abuse them. But in classic WoW, it's like, no, well, we don't want to lose out on that buff, or we don't want to lose out on the flag carrier. We don't want, like, the buffs are just really important too. They synergize well, right? So it's just super interesting.
There's always room for improvement. Nothing's perfect, but it's also important to remember that where there's imbalance, there's also uniqueness and charm. And in the MMORPG genre, these two characteristics are served well in a game where people are trying to fill a role. You know, kind of like a role-playing game, for instance. But classes aren't everything. Eventually, itemization also suffered. Weapon speeds were normalized. All weapon types were made to be the same. Weapon skill removed. Stats deemed to be inferior were cut, and so on and so forth until eventually you have like 5 stats and everyone is capable of everything. All items from previous raid tiers are immediately replaced because it's all about high level now. It's much more balanced, and as a result, it's also incredibly bland. So I'll say it once again, Vendor Strike. Considering its rarity and where it drops, it's one of the worst weapons in the entire game. No one really seriously uses it, but if you mention it, any classic Andy will know exactly.
I actually want this weapon on my monk, bro. Come on.
What you're talking about, because like with the rest of the game, it has charm. These perceived imperfections are one of the big reasons why people play it. Even things as small as leaving useless quest items in your bags that you hang on to until level 60 because you can't remember where it's from, but it might be important. Or taxis that make no sense. Bad items that no one would use. Low-level items that are coveted at the max level. Or racial abilities and passives that have impact. All of these little inconveniences and imperfections contribute to what people refer to as charm, as it's representative of the early years of the genre, and the reasons why people play a version of the game that's labeled classic to begin with. Inconveniences aren't necessarily bad. Video games at their core are just a big list of inconveniences for you to solve. What really matters is how rewarding they feel to solve.
Here comes the pain, bitch! Pop, pop, pop.
That's epic, man. They're all dead. There's like 3 people alive. Oh, that's great, dude.
And that's what separates good developers from bad developers. It's not necessarily the obstacles put in place, it's how rewarding they feel when they're overcome. So, the 3 pillars: simplicity, world, and charm. And in regards to Classic Plus, it's what I think would serve well as sort of this guiding star. The Season of Discovery, some have said, is a form of Classic Plus, and I do agree in some senses, but overall I disagree because it breaks all 3 of these pillars in my opinion. And keep in mind here, I'm not saying that any of this is objectively bad. Personally, I stopped playing SOD after the level 50 phase because I realized that for me it just got too far away from these pillars. If you enjoy Discovery, that's fine. This is just me making a case as to why it doesn't really feel like vanilla for me, and I think a lot of others out there. So first, in regards to simplicity, this was lost with the rune system. There are so many runes in the game. These abilities and passives have changed the classes so much, and rotations are way more complex, which again, this isn't a flaw, but it's just not vanilla. I think that they got too far from how the classes felt in vanilla, and this also leaked into a loss of charm as this obsession with balance reared its ugly head in. It was unfair that only Alliance had kings and only Horde had totems, so we make everything available to both factions, and as a result, that Shaman versus Paladin dynamic, which is a pretty large defining factor of vanilla, was lost. Same with the priest racials, which from what I understand are now shared between everyone. The human weapon skill racial. Oh, people are having trouble affording their mounts, buff gold rates. So now no one has to keep up with repairs. So now it's lost that gold struggle, which I think is also another pretty defining feature of vanilla WoW. As far as the world is concerned, this was absolutely eviscerated with the release of Incursions, where
I said this when SOD came out, that I was like, I think SOD would be really cool with either less runes or no runes. If you guys remember me saying that like a year ago, and everyone called me just an absolute moron, like an absolute idiot. And they're like, dude, runes are SOD. And I was like, to me, what's cool about SOD is like Karazhan Crypts potentially coming out, right? To me, it's like the new raids, the new dungeons, some of these new quests and experiences, but a lot of it's still just classic WoW at its core. To me, that's Classic Plus. And I think you can go too far with it. The thing that hurt me the most, or not hurt is a strong word. The thing that I disliked the most about SOD is healing mages, tank rogues, like that kind of stuff I was like really against since day one. And I called it out and everyone hated on me, but I'm so happy to see Mad Season back me up on this one. All right. Yeah, that's exactly how I feel.
Players farm and share repeatable quests with each other, and combined with the experience buff, they level at absolutely ludicrous speeds in one little corner of the world. And as a result, the world presence in the game was lost. There's so many inconveniences that were removed for the sake of balance or convenience. And I know why it's all done. It's because they're temporary, so the cadence has to be increased. But that's what I'm saying. This increased hyper convenience and cadence makes it impossible for it to feel like vanilla. And it's more reminiscent of retail design, bringing us to the actual pitch of the video. The future of Classic Plus can't be seasonal alone. And I think if Blizzard went the same path with Classic WoW as Jagex has gone with old school RuneScape, it would be as successful, if not more so.
Mad Season, I mean, bro, we are on the same wavelength here. I said the exact same thing, homie. Yes, you make it into a community-driven project where people vote on what they want. You launch just like Classic servers, and then Classic Plus is... the community kind of decides where it goes with a 70% more vote. Like, that's exactly what I've said. I haven't seen this video, by the way. But yeah, I mean, yeah, it's really the only, like, what else are you going to do? Pick someone random's, like, pick their solution and just go with it? You trust Blizzard to just, like, do everything properly and correctly? No, like, you leave it to a vote and let the community drive the project. That's the best solution. The best one that I see, at least.
So if you didn't know, OSRS was released in 2013 to quite a lot of hype, but afterwards, slowly over time, similar to Classic WoW, that big hype burst waned and interest went down because, of course, the big flaw is that there's a finish line. This wasn't unexpected, but when players hit the max and they finished Naxxramas and there's no more content to look forward to, they eventually quit until, of course, Burning Crusade Classic was released. MMORPGs function on the principle that they never end. As players finish raids and other content, they are fed more, and no matter how good one may be, if there's an end, so too is there for a player's interest. So, if you didn't know, as time went on for OSRS, the players started to lose interest, but then Jagex did something pretty interesting. It wasn't one big major patch that changed the game in sweeping ways, but instead, slowly, over the course of years, week by week, they updated and added more and more content to the game in line with what drew people to it to begin with. They did this with the use of polls to measure if the community agrees that if certain changes are in line with this original design philosophy. And by doing that, it's become insanely popular today. You have the main game, OSRS, and every now and then they will also launch these leagues similar to seasons from World of Warcraft, where they increase XP rates and have major changes as sort of a testing ground and a way to draw people back with this fresh launch. By completing activities in-game, you get points, which you can then spend on your main character in the main game for various cosmetic rewards. Now, old school RuneScape and World of Warcraft are two very different MMOs in many different ways, but I think if they were to develop vanilla in a similar way to how OSRS has, and having that base game slowly worked on over time, and using seasons as an optional increased cadence that the players are incentivized to experiment with, and by doing so they get rewards for the base game, and using these 3 design pillars as a guide, they could find similar success. It wouldn't be a light switch. It would definitely take time, but the hard part is already done because for those who've been following my Unreleased Secrets series, the content is already there just begging to be finished. I think that the closest you can get to retaining the spirit of vanilla is by making content that the original developers planned. Old Hygel, Karazhan Crypts, the Ashara Crater, maybe an Ashbringer questline. There's so much content left on the cutting room floor from 2004 They could add raid tiers past Xaryu, a new battleground here and there, and maybe some moderate class balance changes that aren't completely overboard.
All of these things, yes. New raids, new quest lines, maybe a new battleground, maybe minor class balance changes. But like classic still feels classic. I said this a year ago and everyone called me stupid. Guys, do we agree now? Like, we don't want to just completely gut the game like Sod did. You don't want to completely change everything. Like every class gets 20 new abilities. People called me an idiot, but like, yeah, you leave almost everything, but then you add more stuff, right? Experimentally, and you kind of keep going with it. Like, you know what I mean?
I think people would play it.
Yeah,
right now, I feel like the developers are just kind of doing their own thing with the seasons, and they're not really taking too much direction from the community. Like, I personally don't know anybody who said, gee, you know what would be cool? A level 30 Gnomrigon raid. And again, I'm not saying this is necessarily bad. I actually quite enjoyed Sod for the time that I played it.
Yeah.
But I think they've just missed the mark of what vanilla is, because it's impossible to hit it when you have this increased cadence due to their limited availability with nothing to fall back on. And just a small team of developers isn't going to understand a game as much as a community of hundreds of thousands. It's just impossible. So they're just kind of doing their own weird hybrid of vanilla and retail, and at least so far, it doesn't seem to have the staying power that I think an OSRS like Classic Plus would have. What if Vanilla WoW was as it is right now, and tomorrow they announced that the level cap is increased to 70, Old Hygel and Uldum are released as 60 to 70 leveling zones, new talents are added, the Ashara Crater's a new battleground, a level 70 Scarlet Monastery raid in Tirisfal Glades is released, along with a hefty attunement chain. It has 14 bosses, along with a quest line to cleanse Ashbringer for the first person able to do so on their server. The Survivalist Profession is released, new nodes together, and recipes to craft are released, along with long and tough quest chains to obtain them. The Karazhan Crypts open up as a mega dungeon the size of the Blackrock Depths, and this is just the first patch. And
my man is cooking. My man is cooking. Holy
ideas
crap,
and content
dude.
will be continuously pitched to the community to a pass or fail vote. Not everyone gets everything. No doing infinitely repeatable quests in a corner of the world for 2 days to reach the max level. Just more vanilla in the spirit of vanilla. People would instantly drown in their own ejaculant. So, I don't know. That's what I envision Classic Plus to be.
Really?
I think the Season of Discovery has had some interesting stuff going on, but is evidenced by its rather stagnant population. I don't think it's quite hitting the sweet spot for vanilla players, and I think a lot of people have felt that, but maybe didn't necessarily know how to put it into words. So I just wanted to make this video to kind of reach out to any other vanilla fans out there to see if maybe any of this strikes a chord. If it does, feel free to share your thoughts. Like the video if you liked it, because I'll see you in the next one. Peace.
Banger vid from Mad Season, bro. He hit the nail on the head. That is dialed. Classic Plus. Blizzard. OSRS Classic Plus. It's really the only way to go. I've been saying this for about a year. I think Mad Season's been probably saying it longer. I don't think I came up with the idea by any means. I mean, OSRS has been doing it for over 10. It's really the way forward for Classic players that really love Classic, but you want that same spirit, but you want to move it forward. Do what OSRS did.